Hi everyone, we're live here from USI headquarters to discuss issues of dropout. Many students are struggling at this time of year, trying to bed into life at college. They're thinking about maybe leaving their course, and we wanted to go live to you tonight to discuss the issues that matter to you and give you some support and advice. And we're joined by a wonderful panel of experts who will have lots of good advice for you. We've got Jim McMahon from ITTSU Students' Union. He started his course back in 2010 and after dropping out returned to study and successfully graduated this year. We have Rose Ryan, who's the Director of Access at Maynooth University and has years of experience in issues of student support, personal and academic. We have Sorcha Chonghaile from the Irish Second Level Students' Union, who also just started in her first year at DCU. We have Alan O'Byrne from UniBrowse.ie, who struggled with issues of dropping out in his own course, ended up doing an undergraduate and 2 masters, so I'm sure he'll have plenty of experience on studying. And we have Vicky Geraghty from Student Universal Support Ireland, more commonly known as SUSI to all of you, and she'll be giving you some advice on some of the steps you might want to take if you have a grant. So Rose, I'll maybe start with you. 31st October is the deadline in most of our institutions where students might have to withdraw in order to get a refund on any fees paid. So some students might be struggling at the moment with their options. What kind of advice would you give to them at this time of year?
Okay, so the advice I'd give you first is stop. Don't panic.
Yep.
I think you're not alone. Lots of students who are thinking of dropping out think they're the only one in their course and the only one in their college. But in fact, across both the IoT and the university sector, approximately 1 in 6 students don't progress from first to second level. So lots of students drop out for a whole variety of reasons. Lots of students drop out for quite positive reasons. They change their minds, they want to go back into employment, they want to go to a different college, they have financial pressures. And lots of students struggle. And for those, I'd advise you to hang on because the struggle gets easier and life gets a whole lot easier. I think the advice I'd give you is talk to students who are on your course, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your students' union, talk to the professionals in your institution. I have no problem with the students making a decision, but make a good decision based on really good advice.
Perfect. And I suppose that leads us on to yourself, Vicky. Whenever students have stopped, as Rose said, they might be in receipt of a grant, they might be currently applying for a grant. What would you say to them if they came to you? What advice?
The most important thing is there is no dropout date with SUSI.
Yeah.
So if you have applied for a grant and you have been awarded a grant, once you attend any part of that course, that's part of your student contribution to pay. If you drop out next year, if you go on to do another course, you will have a repeat period of study for either 1 month or 2 months. So the best thing to do is, if you do drop out, is deregister as soon as possible because that will have major implications on your grant for next year.
It's important to remember that SUSI and your college are 2 different organisations and they need to make sure that you go through the processes. So contacting you would definitely on your helpline.
And the website is susi.ie and there is a helpline number and it's 076 108 7874 if you need any advice at all.
Definitely ringing that helpline and asking the questions for their own personal scenario would be really important, and we will post up that link to the helpline and the number later on. Jamie, that brings me on to you. Obviously you work in the Students' Union, so you've been a student up until very recently, but now you're working to support students. So where do you come in on all of this?
Yeah, so the advice I would always give students when they're considering dropping out is to get the most information they can to try and make the best decisions that they possibly can. The more information, the better the decision you'll be able to make. So talk to parents, talk to friends, get their input on it. Maybe talk to some of your lecturers and who will have a bit of insight into how you've kind of been getting on within the courses. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the decision is your own. So take on board what these people have to say, but at the end of the day, the important thing is the decision is your own.
It brings me well on to Sorcha then. It is up to students to seek that help and support themselves and ask questions for their own personal scenarios. I mean, you've just started as a student at DCU, so maybe from your own personal perspective.
Yeah, so like I suppose, especially when you're having doubts, you really need to go and talk to your student union. They're there to help you. Like, don't just drop out without telling anybody because you're not really making an informed decision then. Like, go and talk to somebody. It might just be a module that you need to change. It might be, social aspect, you don't know. You can't just drop out without trying to get help because if you drop out and then decide you didn't mean to do that, or you changed your mind after it's too late to go back. You know, you'd have to wait till the following year to go back, or you know, you might change your mind for Christmas and be like, oh, why did I drop out? You know, it does get easier, and I suppose I know myself that like it is tough to transition. And I did struggle with transition. I still am, and like you're trying to get past that period, but like you, like struggling to make friends and struggling to adapt to university life isn't a whole reason to drop out. Like there are things there to help you out, like clubs and socks and student unions, and there are ways to adapt into it. You know.
Perfect. Alan, that issue of progression into third level, you've some experience in that area yourself, obviously personally, but also whenever you set up UniBrowse.
Yeah, well, I suppose my bit of advice would be to hold on, just like what you said earlier on. That it's not, give it a few months before you make any, don't rush into any decisions. I was in a college and all my friends went to different college, so it was probably something that I kind of was thinking that I was on my own and I was going to drop out, and I told my parents I was going to drop out, and eventually we came to the decision that we couldn't afford for me to drop out because my brother was going to college the year after.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to like kind of the grass is greener on the other side. So I was seeing all my friends loving their courses, but they were in the exact same position as I was, but I hadn't actually asked them the proper questions that I should have asked them. So me not dropping out now, looking back, was the best decision I made. I think I was making progress the whole time, even though I was in the course that I really didn't engage with properly, or I didn't fully connect it for the first few months. But the longer I went on, the easier it got, like you were mentioned.
Rose, that brings me in terms, it's already been mentioned, seeking support from your lecturers, engaging with course material. It's a big jump for people, that kind of independent learning. Courses are very different to second level, Sorcha's just left. What kind of advice could you give there? That's, you know, how students might not drop out if they seek that support and advice, and that's something that's maybe important to highlight.
I think academically, the Leaving Cert doesn't prepare you particularly well for third level. And so, for example, I would have a student who has the H1 in Honours Irish who has decided to leave her course because the curriculum of the course isn't anything that she had expected.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of students are kind of lulled into thinking that just because you did something in second level, it's going to be exactly the same with third level. And it's not, and it can be quite off-putting. And you kind of been, you know, the smartest guy in your class, and now you're in a class of 500 and they're all super smart. So I think, well, most people are super smart. So you can feel intimidated, and I think all of the students that I have met, they all think they're the only ones having problems. They're the ones struggling, that everybody else is brilliant, that everybody else is just thrilled with the course of the college they're on, and they're just not. But there are so many supports like Math Support Centre, critical skills courses, academic skills, library information sessions. The Students' Union are great because I find that even in relation to academic skills, it generally isn't the academic issues that make students drop out. It's that they don't have friends, they don't have somebody to have a coffee with, they don't have somebody to go out with. And so it's the combination of maybe feeling uncertain academically, all your friends are gone somewhere else, or you don't seem to have the same pool of friends, and then often things like mental health, family difficulties and financial concerns. Often it's the combination of all of those things that really drive people away. And so it's to cling on sometimes by your fingernails. There's lots of financial supports available, there's lots of academic supports available, and you can build up great personal connections, but you have to put yourself out there.
And we are live, and a question has actually just come in about student union support, and I suppose Jamie, I'll ask you about that from your perspective. A lot of good advice there on all of the different range of issues that affect students, and a student union can be a port of call in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think the Students' Union's job is necessarily to prevent any students from dropping out. It's just to try and help guide the student through the kind of decision-making process, to seek some of that advice, to point them in the right direction, or to explore some of the issues why students are thinking of dropping out. As I said, it's not always to do with the academic side. Sometimes students may just be finding a hard time fitting in their class or making friends through college. So sometimes there are kind of alternatives behind the problem. So if a student might not be getting involved, they feel a bit isolated when they're in their course, they might want to drop out, which is not necessarily the answer. Sometimes if they do get involved in clubs, societies, students' union activities, they make friends that way. I myself personally through my 4 years, the majority of my friends I've met through sports clubs or societies. So that's how I got through it anyway. But the Students' Union would kind of explore the reasons behind why a student is considering dropping out and just help them with some of the information or direct them into some of the best routes to follow up on.
I suppose in the same way that you may reach out to an institution like a support service within your college or to your student union, it's important that that advice is there to give you all of the options rather than tell you the kind of choice that you should make. That really down to students to seek out all of the different supports available and make an informed decision like that.
It's the awareness of knowing that there's support there is the main thing, and not being afraid to reach out initially. Because I know I didn't reach out for me,
To your parents.
and that was and that was I reached out further down the line when I could have stopped it at the start. I think everybody should be aware that there is the services there, or there are the services, and if you're feeling any way anxious or you feel that you made the wrong decision, you probably didn't.
Yeah.
It's just you're feeling that way. So to reach out directly straight away.
And can I just say, SUSI have direct links with all student unions in all the universities and the college, and if they are worried about sending back documents that their student contribution hasn't been paid yet, go to your student union because they can get in touch with us and talk the problem through with the student union rather than the student having to ring SUSI directly. The student union can help them an awful lot more.
Definitely. We actually had a question in from Robbie, who's in 6th year at the moment, and both him and his twin brother are thinking of attending 3rd level next year, and they've actually asked about SUSI support, and that's, I'm sure, something that you could maybe tell a bit more about.
When there is two going to college at the same time, there is an allowance, like if the for certain thresholds in the income, like there is an increment available there for both students attending college at the same time. So based on the fact that any sibling, like if they're in 2nd year or 3rd year in college, there is extra support there for income thresholds for students with siblings or twins in college.
And you also have the eligibility reckoner on your website?
Yes, that's the first port to call, is the eligibility reckoner. It's just a few simple questions, and it'll tell you whether you should proceed to make a grant application or not.
Perfect. We also had a question from Ben O'Leary Fitzpatrick, and he asked, are there ways that we can encourage students to stay in their course? So going back to some of the issues around dropout and some of those choice decisions. Sorcha, you think is there anything you would have said to some of your classmates? I know that some that have already left their course.
Yeah, like just get out there and put yourself out there if you're struggling to make friends. Like usually everyone else is in the same boat as you and you don't realise it. Oftentimes you get a bit isolated in your own mind. Like even if you're down just buying a cup of coffee or whatever, just turn around and speak to the person behind you. Because we're all there in the same boat. And like if your problem is socialising, that's probably the easiest way to get yourself more comfortable. And what's the worst that can happen? Like them saying no and then walk away. Like they're not going to do that. People are usually quite friendly. And then on top of that, then if it's money that's coming into it, do look for support. Like if you're struggling to get through college, there is like advisors in every college to give you a hand. Like talk you through budgeting. Like we've never had to budget before. Like it's a good opportunity to go and do that. Especially those of us that aren't doing a business course. It would be good for us to learn how to budget our money, you know. So
I can speak from experience on that one. It wasn't very good at budgeting, but you do get there eventually. From your own personal background, Jimmy, I'm sure you have good advice.
Yeah, well, I dropped out in 2010 and then returned to education and started again in 2013. For me, I didn't like the course I was studying. I was originally studying computing and it really just wasn't for me. It's not something I ever really wanted a career in, but I chose it through the CAO after talking with family and friends, and I knew there would be jobs in it, but they weren't necessarily for me. And as the course went on, I kind of realised that this course didn't suit me. So the best thing I actually ended up doing was dropping out. I took 2 years out of college and I was working, and then I returned to college in 2013, ended up doing business management, and I absolutely loved it. And looking back, it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah. Rose, I mean, that's an important part of this discussion as well. People maybe are considering dropping out, but there's a big stigma around dropout and leaving your course. So from your own background, I mean, you've worked on transition into 3rd level, students with disabilities especially, there's lots of things they might need to consider. I mean, in terms of that destigmatisation, is there a message that we need to send to parents, family and friends as well whenever, if they know somebody's maybe struggling with dropping out?
I think the first thing I'd say is that the language around dropout is very negative, and it's about an individual failure. And it often isn't. It's okay to make a mistake, and it can be a very positive thing to do something different. So, you know, when you hear about dropout, it's always about non-progression, retention, student withdrawal, and really the way we're talking about it now in higher education is about supporting student success. And success means lots of things. It can mean leaving and coming back again. It can mean getting good information and holding on. It can mean getting your grant, but also knowing that you need money through the Student Assistance Fund to support you. And I think as colleges we have to recognise that, I suppose, the ideal system would be a much more flexible system where students could move in and move out at different entry and withdrawal points. That's much more reflective of real life. But I suppose the thing I would really say is that, and I say this all the time to students, is that sometimes the course that you're doing is the course that your mum or dad wanted you to do, or that somebody else wanted you to do. And I suppose what I always say to students is, tell your mum and dad, I know they're really interested in your welfare and they want the best for you, but they already had their chance. And this is your chance. And it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay to leave, it's okay to come back again, it's your life. And so you've got to make really positive choices for yourself, and don't frame it around something that's negative. I actually think the bravest people that I know are people who say, this isn't for me, and they want to do something different. And so be brave, because it can just be so much better for you in the long run. Just don't do what lots of students do. They silently leave. But as long as you're a registered student, you're clocking up a part of your free fees and a part of the financial contribution that the state makes to your education. So get good advice, tell your mum this is your life nicely, and then make good decisions and abide by deadlines, because systems work by deadlines.
I think you just mentioned be brave. I think that's the most important message, is being brave, and just initially making the first interaction with whoever, your parents, your friends, or college, and making it clear that you realise that you might have been a mistake. Potentially you feel like you're going down the wrong route. Just as soon as you can, as soon as you realise that could be an issue, then be brave and get out there straight away.
We are live, and I've been told that people are struggling to hear us, so if we could all speak up a wee bit. The set hasn't fallen apart, so that's grand. Just on that point, Alan, I mean, how did the conversation with your parents go, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it wasn't nice. It was, I suppose I put it off for as long as I possibly could. I put it off probably for a month where I shouldn't have. I think I had this discussion with my parents in December, when I knew in probably early November that I wasn't really engaged in the course. And you know, you have the feeling in your gut where you're just dreading this conversation, and you obviously have the feeling as well. I absolutely dreaded it so much. And my parents are great, but the whole thing, I sat them down and I said, look, I think we have to make a huge decision poorly, and they were really supportive of the whole thing. And then what happened was, the degree that I was doing was a 3-year degree, and I was already halfway through 1 year. So I said, after a long probably a week going back and forth, talking to different people in college and different colleges and our friends and that sort of stuff, I decided that it was probably better for me to give it a go. I wasn't struggling with the content too much, so give it a go and try and finish off the course. And then after I used the degree that I had to do something else after, if I wanted to. Like, just because you do a degree in something doesn't mean that that's what you're going to do forever. Like, the degree that I had has nothing to do with the job that I have now. So it was a good base for me to have, that I could now go on and do a masters in something completely different. So I would encourage people that don't jump into it, and definitely don't drop out of college without telling anybody. That's the worst thing you can possibly do, I'd say.
That actually leads me really nicely on to a question that came in from Michelle Mulvihill, and she asked that she's struggling in a certain subject as a part of her course at the moment, 7 weeks in, and wants to know what kind of support she can reach out for. She's struggling to understand a certain aspect of her course at the moment.
So it's very common, Michelle, and it's great that you raised the question, because often what happens, I always think about students who are doing psychology. Everybody loves psychology until you have to do statistics, and then you realise actually psychology isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. So I think for her it's a matter of talking to, like, there's often program advisors within institutions, and they give you really good academic advice, and it's not too late. I'd rather change a module 7 weeks in, recognising that that's challenging because you've missed 7 weeks of your course, but I'd rather do that than be on week 52 of sticking with a module that you knew you didn't really like from the beginning. So get good advice, talk to program advisors. It's almost certainly not too late for you to switch from one module to another, recognising that you'll have to do a bit of work to catch up.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Lots of modules are optional. There's some foundation ones, and I mean, you have to do psychology 101 to move on to the next part of psychology, obviously. And some of those, it's a matter of talking to students who are further along in their course to find out lots of people struggle. Everybody struggles with statistics. Just about everybody struggles with statistics. So talk to other students. There's loads of academic support centres. The math support centre will help you with some of those core issues. So I think for Michelle, what I would say is don't despair. If it's awful, get really good advice, see if you can swap, but if not, reach out and make connections.
Also, if you're stuck on any module, you can learn anything off YouTube these days.
Yeah.
That's not my academic advice.
I suppose as well though that if you go and you talk to your lecturer, it's a little bit easier
Yeah.
as well, because
Yeah.
they're happy enough to answer your questions if you're lost.
Yeah.
Like, they're not there to confuse you, they're there to help you.
Yeah.
So if you go up and you ask them a question, they can give you more information on the area that you're
Yeah.
stuck.
You often don't have that connection with academic staff, and it's important to reach out and make that connection, because it could be someone who could support
Learn
you.
their names.
Yeah.
Through, they
Yeah.
and they'll hopefully learn yours as well. We actually have a question from Steve, who asked about dropout rates and if they're related to advice at second level. I'm sure Sorcha, you'll have something about that. And he said maybe that there's a push for students to go too quickly in the third level and make fast decisions. And he says that he's 43 and he still doesn't know what he wants to be, and his wife suggested employed. But yeah, Sorcha, a bit about advice at second level, maybe second level students watching now. I know Robbie, who
I suppose, like, you have to really think about what you're going to jump into. Don't put a course on your CAO that you think is going to look great on a CV. Pick what's going to interest you. So for me, like, I knew what I wanted to do since I was really little, and that's always been the path that I was going to go down. But I know that if I'd been in fifth year and changed my mind, I probably would have taken a year out, or taken some time to go maybe do a PLC course in the area, or do something, instead of just jumping straight in, not knowing what I'm doing. Also, if you've put like loads of courses on your CAO application and it's like your 9th choice that you're after getting, really think about, is that what you want to do? Do you really want to put that down there? Like, don't put something down on the CAO that is going to be no interest to you, because you're going to end up doing a degree that you really hate, you know?
I think going straight into third level from second level has become the norm. So a lot of people do rush into it. People are just looking for careers. They think they pick the best option that they have at that particular time, just because it might be an option. Like when I finished my leaving cert, all the jobs were in computing. That's why I went straight into computing. But again, I absolutely hated it. And now, after studying something I loved, what's the old saying? If you do something you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. So I enjoy all the work I have to do now, all the work I do, and all the jobs I can get from my degree. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions coming in here about really seeking advice. So one student is asking what happens if they can't pay their student contribution. We also had a question about support available for international students. Maybe Rose, could you pick up on some of that?
So for international students, there's an international office in pretty much every institution, and they provide specific advice for them. Sometimes for international students, again, it's more related to connection to the campus, or they're in a very different environment, and they can find that challenging. I think the point that you made about lecturers' hours is really important, because lecturers will always have drop-in hours, but most students, particularly first year students, think that that's the drop-in to interrupt them hours. It's not. They want to know you, they want to know the issues that they have, they want to talk to you, and it's important that you talk to them, because you're building your connections all the time. So I think that's really a point that I would reiterate. I think it's a very good point.
Thank you. Vicky, I have one for you, and it's from a mature independent student who has been homeless, and they wanted to know what options are there to prove currently homeless.
If they are in getting support from homeless charities or anything like that, letters to support their grant application, they can be used to prove independent residence.
Hopefully that's useful advice then for them now to go forward, and obviously get in contact with the helpline.
No,
if they
there
want any.
is grants available for people that are homeless. Yeah.
That's great. And I wanted to bring up the question about paying the student contribution. Jimmy, you have students coming into you all the time and financial difficulty.
Yeah, so what we have is the Student Assistance Fund. So basically it's kind of separate to SUSI. It's not as the grant isn't as big as SUSI, but it does help students. So once students, you can apply for the Student Assistance Fund through the Students' Union, and it's just providing some documentation, and then your application goes through the Students' Union and through the college, and students are awarded some financial help to help see them through college.
Perfect. We are almost out of time, so if we could all ask you maybe one final piece of advice that you would give everyone. I'll start with you, Vicky, because obviously there is the 31st of October deadline in your college for withdrawal, but there is a deadline with SUSI as well that people need to consider.
SUSI's closed for applications on the 2nd of November, so it's Thursday week.
So 2nd of November, if you want to get your grants, if you want to apply for your grant, make sure you're keeping an eye on that 2nd of November deadline. And remember, there's a bank holiday coming up, so you might want to get all of your documentation sorted out as soon as possible. Alan, any final words?
I suppose if you're looking for courses for next year, use UniBrowse. It's a search engine for college courses that we set up basically because I picked a course I didn't like. So it's just an easy way to search for courses. So whether you're a 6-year student now, or you're a parent, or you're somebody considering dropping out and reapplying to college, then just have a look at UniBrowse, and it's just a bit easier.
Another resource to think about your options. Jimmy?
Yeah, so my advice would be don't make any rash decisions. Take the time to think about whether you want to stay in your course, or maybe if dropping out and coming back to college is a better option. So I'd say think about it and be brave as well.
Rose, obviously your advice at the start was to stop, so hopefully they've stopped and watched all of the good advice that was given today. But final words for...
You can, because often you feel sick, and as the deadline, your back is against the wall as you're moving towards the deadline, realise you have to make decisions, so just be calm. A couple of pieces of advice, as you mentioned about PLC courses, the further education training sector is fantastic for preparing students for college. Really consider it. I think the second piece of advice I give you is that mental health is a huge issue for students in higher education, and it's really important that they link in with good services across the campus, and sometimes the difficulties and financial barriers, they really impact on your mental health. You need to be well, and so it's important to link in with those. And a bit of advice, I suppose, about part-time work. It's very easy to become a full-time part-time worker and a part-time student, and it's really important for you to know that once you go over 10 or 12 hours of part-time work, I know you need the money, but it has a direct impact on your academic achievement, progression and retention. So get rid of the pizza, save a bit of money by going to Aldi, buy cheaper food, do anything, but just try and keep the part-time hours to a minimum, and embrace life as a student. You don't have to have lots of money. You do have to push yourself out there, but it can be a wonderful experience if you just throw yourself into it.
Sorcha?
I suppose it's kind of on the same grain of what I was going to say, is get out there, get involved, go join clubs and socks, talk to that person in the line at Starbucks. It'll really change your day. You won't feel so alone, and it will just help you to kind of feel more involved in college, and you won't want to drop out. Like, you'll be having such a good time that all you'll think about is next time you're going to get to go down and have Starbucks with your friends.
So whether you're a student that's currently thinking about dropping out, you're maybe thinking of going back to a course again, you're thinking about your SUSI grants or applying, or you're at 6th level and you're thinking ahead for the year, there are lots of supports out there, be it from your student union, your college, your friends and your family, thinking about your course options, and indeed calling up the SUSI helpline if you need to do that. Thank you for tuning in. We hope it was helpful, and we'll maybe see you all again.